welcome to a brand new episode of the
Geek Buddies. Hey!
Yeah. This is a special weekend edition of the Geek Buddies. We are dropping this sometime this weekend. We're recording it on a Friday night because of schedules and what have you. So that's what we're doing here.
Because of me. Just say it. Because of me. It's Vogel's fault. It's Vogel's fault. Vogel missed the Agatha review. Vogel missed the Wiccan reveal. Vogel's making us run Geek Buddies late. I'm the diva of Geek Buddies. It's fine. Just say it.
People accused us of killing you in the goo for that, Agatha. There's a lot of accusations in that comment section about why you weren't on that show. But yes, Michael's scheduled. We're recording here late on a Friday night, but we will have this out for you all over the weekend. So thank you so much for clicking play and listening or watching this particular episode. We got a lot to get into in the world of geekdom. This is our main show. So we're going to talk about the big stories of the week, including Aaron Pierre's casting, Henry Cavill, VOLTRON situation, some new trailers. And we're going to get into a big conversation about that article from Variety talking about toxic fandom, and also how some of the examples of that came through this week in interesting ways in different projects. So we're going to talk about all of that here on this particular episode. But let's introduce ourselves. I am the Outlaw John Roca, writer, producer, and host here on the Geek Buddies.
I am Michael Vogel, writer and producer of animated TV shows and movies.
And this is Shannon McClung. I'm an animation writer and a television actor, and a schedule as clear as the bright blue sky. I'm always happy to do this. Whatever I have on the books, I'll take it off just to record Geek Buddies. Not just to chat with my pals, not just to chat with my buddies, but to connect with our loyal, devoted, amazing audience.
I'm going through our text chain to see how many times. Sorry, buddies, can't do it. Got work, gonna be at uni. Shani and I have a movie to watch. Got a dinner, can't make it. Got to do it without me.
I think you're making this up because there's no way those are all in succession.
There you go. All right, so we're going to get into all that stuff here. So sit back, relax, let us entertain you, and let's have some fun conversations. The way it works is each of us brings up a geek news item. We talk about it amongst ourselves. We'll take a couple of breaks, but we'll get into the main geek news item as we talk about the toxic fandoms and all of that stuff. But let's deal with some fun casting news, and that is Aaron Pierre. Yes, recently seen as the lead in Rebel Ridge, has been tapped to play John Stewart in Lanterns, the series coming from Max or HBO Max or HBO, whatever they're going to call themselves by the time this series comes out. And of course, we'd heard a few days ago, that Kyle Chandler had been in talks with to play Hal Jordan. That has now been apparently signed, and that is good to go. So now we have Aaron Pierre as John Stewart, Kyle Chandler as Hal Jordan, and Nathan Fillion as Guy Gardner here. This process apparently was very intense. Came down to Pierre and Stephen James, who had been seen as Jesse Owens in the race biopic and recently in the piano lesson. And apparently they tested opposite Kyle Chandler on both Thursday and Friday of last week. And then Tuesday, the decision was made to go with Aaron Pierre. Aaron Pierre was 30 years old, a 6'3", hulking, massive a man, is now going to be going alongside Kyle Chandler here in this true detective approach to the Green Lantern situation. So, Michael, it seemed like he was the odds-on choice, but then there were other people that were presented, Stephen James coming in late. So clearly it was between two people. What are your thoughts on this, that they finally settled on Aaron Pierre? And what are your thoughts about this lineup for Lanterns as Green Lanterns here?
I watched Rebel Ridge a few weeks ago, and the second that I watched it, he was my odds-on favorite. I watched Rebel Ridge, and I went, yeah, it should be John Stewart. I'm in on this. I'm 100% in. Just like with, and this is, I think, a good sign of where DC is going. Just like with the finalists for the Lois Lane casting, you reach a certain point, and then they're saying these are our top 2 or 3. Just like with Lois Lane, I had a clear standout. And just like with Lois Lane, my clear standout won. But you reach a point where you're like, you're doing good because any of these are good options. I mean, arguably, even though there did seem to be a bit more of a shuffle on the Hal Jordan front, like, Josh Brolin seemed like a good idea, and I'm thrilled that Kyle Chandler's going to be Hal Jordan. Like, I just feel like they're really... It seems like, maybe it will be wrong in a year, but it seems like James Gunn, Peter Safran, the creative teams are putting together, have a really clear idea of exactly what they want these characters to be and are going after that specific thing, not just who looks like this or who represents the tone of this character over the past 60 years, but a very specific, this is what our Hal Jordan is going to be. This is what our John Stewart is going to be. So I think this is great. And yeah, as far as the Kyle Chandler, Nathan Fillion, Pierre lineup, it's a great lineup. Like, I don't know that we're going to get the opportunity given wherever this Lantern show and the mainline cinematic universe is going and where everyone falls on this. I don't know that we're going to get the opportunity to see all three of these Lanterns together, but you look at that lineup and the idea of seeing those three bounce off of each other is really, really enticing.
Yeah, Shannon, what are your thoughts on Aaron Pierre stepping into the role of John Stewart, and what you think the chemistry will be here with him and Kyle Chandler and possibly Gardner at some point in that series?
Every once in a while, a geek's wish is granted. I think back to like 2004 when they, Christopher Nolan's rebooting Batman. Who's going to be Batman? All the fans wanted Christian Bale. Lo and behold, we got Christian Bale as Bruce Wayne, aka Batman. After Rebel Ridge, I certainly agreed. I'm like, man, this guy has a quality about him. Like he was in the Underground Railroad, which I did. Yes. I remember seeing a couple episodes of that, but there was just something about his performance in Rebel Ridge, just this calm, steely, incredibly strong personality that I'm like, man, that guy would look amazing wearing a green Power Ring. So absolutely thrilled that he's the guy. And even though, like, yes, he is a giant, we forget Kyle Chandler's like 6'1". Yeah. So like he's not a little dude. And so knowing that, like, if you've watched Friday Night Lights, I mean, you've seen Kyle Chandler mentor many a young fella. And the two of them together, I'm certainly excited. And like obviously, like when you're making something, do you want the biggest name you can get? Of course. Like, would they have been thrilled if Josh Brolin had said yes? Absolutely. Kyle Chandler is a good pick. I can't think of anyone else who other than Aaron Pierre. Again, after watching Rebel Ridge, and like this guy's flirted with big projects in the past. Like he was attached to Blade at one point before it went through another iteration, and his character apparently was no longer in the script. But I'm absolutely stoked. And even if we don't get to see the three of them together, knowing that they will know who each other is, that maybe there will have been an interaction at one point that happens off screen that will, like the first time Hal meets Guy and he's telling John, there's this guy literally, and he's a piece of work. Like the history that could come along with that trio is really exciting.
Yeah, I think there's a natural energy to Aaron Pierre that is reminiscent of John Stewart, right? This kind of quiet, calm strength, no need for histrionics or extra stuff. He just kind of owns the room when he walks into it. And certainly Rebel Ridge is a great calling card for that kind of energy. So you can see him bringing it to that. But also, this is an experienced actor around big projects. Like he was in Krypton. He was in 20 episodes of Krypton, that series. He's a British actor, very well trained. He was in Britannia, which is a British series that a lot of people enjoyed. He was in Old, that M. Night Shyamalan film that he directed, Underground Railroad, as Shannon already mentioned, but also recently played Malcolm X in the Genius series for National Geographic for an 8-episode series as Malcolm X when it's MLK and Malcolm X kind of exploring their journeys in connection with each other. So this guy's done a lot of strong stuff at a young age to get to this point. So this seems like the next logical step. Because I saw some people saying, well, why would he do this? After Rebel Ridge, you could go lead a film or lead a franchise or whatever. But I imagine that they pitched his team to this possibility that, look, you're going to be in this 8-episode series, but this is a launching point for you to go into our main theatrical series as Green Lantern, as the Green Lantern of this particular version of DC under James Gunn and Peter Safran. So I imagine that was all part of it. And I also think his quote was probably higher than Stephen James. And so they moved that Josh Brolin money a little bit over and were able to get him. So I think this is all around a great situation and we'll benefit from it. Yeah, Michael.
Yeah, well, and echoing what you were saying, I mean, look, just I don't know what their plans are for the DC universe, but knowing that Lanterns is a True Detective style, sort of more Earth-based Lantern series. Right. And that Hal Jordan is a mentor, and knowing just what we know from the Superman stories, that Guy Gardner is the Lantern of Earth, but is sort of on the Maxwell Lord sort of corporate superhero team, just based on the costumes and things that we've seen. I mean, you really are setting up John Stewart to step. Yeah. Like, Guy Gardner's a great, fun character. Guy Gardner is never going to be the Green Lantern of the DC universe.
Right.
Like, he's like, it's just not happening. But
he's a Green Lantern, not the Green Lantern.
And when Guy Gardner is a Green Lantern, he's always great. Like, Guy Gardner is a great guy to have to the side that you're like, this guy's an asshole, but he really came through in a pinch. Like, but I mean, they really are setting this up that John Stewart learns in this limited series from the greatest Green Lantern that Earth has ever produced, how to be a Green Lantern, and then can step right into the movies and be the Green Lantern. So I think you are right that probably was part of the pitch to him. And, you know, as we've seen in the news this week, it seems like Zach Levi thought that Shazam was going to be his big launch into stardom. And so sometimes you take a swing and you don't quite get there. But in this case, I think this is a pretty sure bet.
Yeah, and I know a friend of the show here has said, well, the scripts are locked and that's it. But I think there might be some changes. It won't be wholesale changes or page one rewrites, but perhaps they'll tailor it now that they have a future superstar like Aaron Pierre in the John Stewart role to make certain scenes focus on him a bit more, or change certain elements of the story so that it is much more John Stewart focused. Because also you don't cast Kyle Chandler and Nathan Fillion, two guys who honestly a little long in the tooth for having been leads in the past, to be your main Green Lantern. You don't. You go with a young 30-year-old who is coming off of Rebel Ridge, who's got a character we've never seen theatrically on screen or live action on screen to play this role. So it'll be our main Green Lantern. And it's a lot of fun. And I love this idea. And you'll have these two different mentors, kind of like the angel and the devil on your shoulder, to kind of mess around with him, which I think is a genius setup there for these relationships.
I don't know how much they would change. I mean, even had it been Josh Brolin, I think that Josh Brolin would have been the older Hal Jordan, and still, as great as Josh Brolin is, I still don't think he would have been the one that they were lining up to be the Green Lantern.
Not at all. Yeah. No, I agree.
Yeah, I think the intention was always that this is probably going to be Hal's swan song.
Right.
And again, like, if you can get a big actor for like, hey, all you got to do is this. Yeah. Great. Yeah, my guess is that what the show is probably what the show is, but they are thrilled. I mean, they've said repeatedly, this is a two-hander. Yeah. I think DC is probably thrilled to have landed Aaron Pierre.
Yeah, and it's not out of the realm possibility that they'll rewrite something. So
well, you're always. I mean,
we are not agreeing on this.
You're saying there's going to be no rewrite, Shannon. You're saying
that's not what I'm saying. It's not what I'm saying.
I don't think they're changing the show.
I am not being backed into a corner saying they're not going to do rewrites. Every show does rewrites. All shows do rewrites throughout production. So I am not saying the script is golden and they're not touching it. They will touch the script. I just don't think that the Brolin to Chandler casting Pierre, there's nothing about these casting choices to me that goes, they need to really shift what their plan was, is all I'm saying.
Oh, okay. See, I'm saying it different. I think they knew. I think they will shift it a little bit. So, but we'll never know, will we? Unless we get the original scripts right now, look at them, and then see what the scripts end up being. But it feels like, because if you go with the younger Green Lantern, it's not that well known, you're going to spend more screen time with Josh Brolin. So he kind of lends that to the young unknown. But now with someone like Aaron Pierre, he's much more of a presence and much more known. So you don't need to do that. So it'll be interesting. And I think he's going to outshine Kyle, to be honest with you. And I don't think that would necessarily be the case with a Josh Brolin. I get those two mixed up all the time.
Tommy Lee Jones. I mean, that's a hell of a... That's a different movie. Lee Jones was up for Hal Jordan after his winning performance as Two-Face in Batman Forever.
Tommy Lee Jones is really old Hal Jordan.
It'd be the other Green Lantern from the Justice Society. It'd be that called in the Lantern. So anyway, yeah, that would be the situation there. But either way, we're all happy this has happened. And as Shannon pointed out, I think is really nailed it. Is like the fans. It felt like the energy was for Aaron Pierre.
Yeah,
and now it's happened. So I think we're all on board. No one's complaining.
I saw somebody posted it as I was scrolling through as I was running around Disneyland yesterday. But somebody like just did a lineup of the entire cast of the DC universe that we know
so far,
including from like just everyone that's in everyone that's in Superman, like everything. And like you look that it's a hell of a lineup.
I agree.
And it's a really I mean, we're gonna get into all of our toxic fandom talk in a little bit, but like it is a very diverse lineup already without looking like it's trying to be a diverse lineup. It's just they're choosing like between Mr. Terrific and John Stewart and Hawker. Like you just look at it and you're like, this is a strong lineup of characters, and we haven't even gotten to the Flash or Batman or Wonder Woman, and it's already looking like really compelling. So Listen, I know Mike Kalinowski somewhere is just got a shiver down his spine, but I am more excited about the DC universe right now, the cinematic universe, than I've been probably ever. Yeah,
I would agree with that. And wait till they bring in that Joker from Joker 2 at the end. They're perfect. They're Joker for the universe.
Why do you have to ruin my moment? I was having such a nice moment, and you just
I know. I'm sorry.
You followed dude me.
Hello. All right, what's our second story here, Mr. Vogel?
Well, we got more casting news. We have got this live action Voltron movie that's coming along. That if you are a fan of Voltron, you've never seen Voltron in live action, and you're excited, or you're nervous, or you're nervous-sided, as I think most people are. But they already announced a few weeks that Daniel Quintoy, who is a brand newcomer, never been in anything, he's Tom Holland's understudy in the West End, was cast as the lead role of this Voltron movie. And now we've got Henry Cavill stepping into the live action world of Voltron in a role that nobody is quite sure what he is going to be. The plot of this new Voltron is being kept very, very under wraps. But gentlemen, Henry Cavill, he was super. I mean, like, look, regardless of all of our opinions of Henry Cavill was Superman.
Yes.
Like, got as far as like stepping into an existing role. That's one of the biggest. And it didn't end up working out great for him in the long run. He had a couple good at-bats, but ultimately, just given the way DC went, Henry Cavill is no longer Superman. He stepped into the role of The Witcher, and then he stepped out of the role of The Witcher.
Yeah.
He's got Highlander coming up, and now he's stepping into Voltron. And I don't know how much you guys know about Voltron. I don't know if you watched all of Netflix's amazing animated Voltron Legendary Defender series. If anyone has not watched it, you should absolutely watch it. It's one of my top 5 favorite animated series of all time.
Wow.
Gentlemen, what do you think of this? Is it a good call for him? Any thoughts on who he might be playing, given your knowledge of Voltron, or unsure?
So I watched, I call it the original version. Really, it was the American original version because it was an amalgamation of 2 Japanese series. My guess is that what they are doing is not what has come before. That they are, we are not going to see Keith, Lance, Finn, Pidge, Hunk. We're not. I think those characters might exist, but they're not going to be the team. I think if Henry Cavill were the villain, I think they would have said that. But my guess is that he's going to be someone of authority, because I don't think you cast someone like him with the stature that he has to play like, the cook. So in terms of like who he's going to play, like he's not the lead. Like they already said, like they found their lead, and it's this this younger guy. Right. So he is going to be, my guess is the elder statesman of that cast. So whether that is some sort of extraterrestrial wizard, a king, something, that is my guess, and who he's going to be. Which it's interesting that when you're looking someone to kind of anchor your young talent around, he's not the guy that comes to mind. But I mean, he is 41, so I don't know. We'll see what happens. I think when you have the right director with Henry Cavill, he turns in a great performance. It's all going to come down to who is directing him.
Well, it's Ross and Marshall Thurber. Who...
We'll see what happens.
It is, yeah. From a directing standpoint, you're like, okay.
Yeah,
Johnny, what are your Voltron thoughts?
I'm a Transformers guy, so
there it is. That's waiting for. There it is. I don't know me. I don't know me. These are not my robots.
You know what?
My robots turn into trucks, not lions.
I went with the good ones. No, I'm joking. I know there's a lot of people who love Voltron, and hearing you praise that series now, Mike, makes me want to maybe take a Saturday and watch this series.
Here's what I'll say, not just to you, but to everybody, because I was just talking about this series with someone, and I think this series has the same challenge to people coming into it that Avatar: The Last Airbender has, is that when you talk to your friends who love Airbender, or you talk to your friends who love Voltron, and they tell you got to watch it, when you start watching Avatar: The Last Airbender, and when you watch the first season of Voltron, you get about 4 or 5 episodes in, and you go, I don't know what they like it so much. Voltron is very like, here's the creature we're fighting this week, here's the creature. It's very sort of moves slowly. In Avatar: The Last Airbender, that first book moves really slowly. When you get to like about season 2, halfway through season 2 of Voltron, it really kicks in, and then you just tear through the 6 or 7 seasons that it is. Like, you just can't stop. It is epic. Awesome, amazing. Joaquin Dos Santos was one of the directors on it, and Sony looked at what he did on that and said, why don't you direct a Spider-Verse movie? So
wow. So okay.
Got some action going for it.
Well, I'll say this. How can I say this correctly? Ross and Marshall Thurber is an interesting director. I like Central Intelligence, but it's not like he has the strongest resume as a director. Red Notice was terrible. Skyscraper was a fine vehicle for The Rock. Dodgeball was a lot of fun, but We're the Millers was okay. So it's a bit of it's just a bit of a mixed. So I don't know what the end result's going to be. And I think what Shannon said here at the end, that it all depends on the director. Look at Argyle. That was not good. And even Henry Cavill fair, was not that good. I think Vaughn is losing it as a director. But you look at him in Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare, he was fantastic in that film. Nobody went to see it, but he was a blast in that film under Guy Ritchie's direction. So yes, he is, as Shannon said, he's a bit limited by who directs him. I am concerned. This is a massive project. Ross and Marshall Thurber's instincts are not to go A-list super franchise making $1 billion off of it. So it's a little bit more of a lower approach. So that's my concern when I look at this. But this makes me worry for Henry Cavill. Like, why do you take this? Why are you doing a Highlander reboot? Why are you doing a Voltron live action adaptation? Why are you doing these things? And it makes me wonder if maybe there aren't other Warhammer 40,000. Like, there aren't other offers on the table with well-known IP, and he's doing what he can to collect some checks and stay in the mix for things. So it's an interesting instinct. The Witcher, these are not that well known, although it was a big hit on Netflix. These are not that well known overall as the mainstream knows them. So it's interesting choices. I hope it works out because I love Henry and I want it to do well. But I'm just a little perplexed on why you would take this.
I've heard from a couple of different people that he really is a geek.
Oh, I know
he is. What I'm saying is what you're laying out as why is he making these choices, and then you list it up. You're like, why is he making these choices? Witcher, Highlander, Voltron. If you're a geek, and then you end up with the body of the gods, and everybody wants to cast you in their adaptations of all the shit that you love, you're like, yeah, this seems like a good idea. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. Voltron is, to Shannon's point, and I hadn't really thought about this, but like, I do think that between the original animated series and then the Netflix sort of updated version, everyone really is tied to those characters. And when you look at those characters, Henry Cavill's like, you're either Shiro or you're Zarkon or you're Prince Lotor if they're going to get to that point. And like, that's kind of, when you look at the who exists, you're like, that's who it would be. There is the chance that they're not doing that at all. And they're like, we're just taking the idea of a bunch of lions that form the Voltron robot, and we're going to do our own thing with it. That is a definite there's an argument to be made for that being a good idea, and there's an argument to be made for that being a bad idea. Voltron is like right on the cusp. Like, it's not to the level of the DC universe, the Marvel universe, Star Wars, where the characters are so beloved that if you go do your own thing, you're just automatically dead in the water. Like, there's enough people that don't know Voltron at all that if you come up with an original story and give some nods to the original, like, or come up with a brand new story and give nods to what came before it, maybe the fans will be just excited to see a bunch of live action lions turn into a live action robot, and people who don't know the animated series from the 80s or the DreamWorks animated series like be like, cool, this was great, I love this. But I don't know, I always get worried if you when you go down that road. So, but I also get worried with them taking something that I think is pretty perfect and trying to do a less good live action version. So I don't really know what I think is the best idea for this one.
Well, I mean, that's the thing with both versions of the show, those lions existed before the main cast. They existed before the main cast, and my guess is they were going to exist after the main cast. So, I think as a concept, I mean, people know that name, like, you know, your regular moviegoer, like, they know the name of Voltron. They may not be able to, you know, point out specifics, but like, oh, the lions that make the guy. Yeah.
Right.
So when I was a kid, I had the toy, and I was a little bit like John. Transformers were my robots. So I didn't really watch Voltron a lot in the 80s. It's only with the DreamWorks series on Netflix where I was like, holy shit, this is the greatest thing in the world.
Okay.
Yeah, those those toys were an important lesson in what a toy company can do and what they can't do. Because when you look at the animated series, all the lions are the same size. When you get the toys, like, well, this one's this big and this one's this big, and this one's kind of wide, and like what makes the robot? Okay, now I got it.
Right. Well, he may be playing like, because it's what, five pilots. Pilots. So maybe he's the lead pilot, as you said, Shannon, and all the other pilots maybe a bit younger in age. So
but I think so. This is a Shannon thing again. We're just guessing, but like that main kid that they cast, you're like, this is our lead. He's probably the lead. But I mean, I think they're gonna have to have 5 pilots. I don't know how you do Voltron and you don't have 5 pilots. If they do a Voltron that doesn't have 5 pilots, they've made it a little bit too original. So you're going to have 5 pilots. So maybe there is a version where Henry Cavill is Shiro or a Shiro type, but this lead guy is a Pidge or a Pidge type. Like there's a lot of ways that you could go. And we won't know until we know more. But I do agree with John that like Henry Cavill's choices, while each one seemingly, if they hit big, is huge, still doesn't seem, despite the fact that he's landed some of the biggest geek IP out there, he still hasn't quite found his home in the way that Chris Evans or Robert Downey Jr. sort of fully inhabited something to the point where there's no debate anymore. You know, it's like he hasn't quite landed that. And so maybe he thinks this is a shot.
You know, I wonder if this takes him out for any Marvel stuff for a bit. But we'll see. Because I mean, he deserves to get into some big IP, for God's sakes. We'll see. All right, let's take a quick break. And on the other side, we'll get into some. We'll go to the movies with our friend Shannon McClung right after this.
That's the original 80s
Nice.
Voltron theme, which is fantastic.
I think Henry Cavill's going to remake Dirty Dancing next. Anyway, all right, go ahead.
But as Baby, he's gonna play Baby.
He's gonna
Nobody puts Baby in the corner. There's nowhere else to put you. You're a giant.
You behemoth.
So we got some trailers.
Hey.
3 pretty interesting ones. The first one we were texting about right before we started recording, and we get the first look at Nautilus. So this is a streaming series. This one has a really, really interesting journey because it was back in 2021 that Disney Plus ordered this to series with the intention that it was going to be on Disney Plus in the UK. By the time they finished filming in 2023, in a lot of their kind of cost-cutting measures, suddenly Disney Plus was not going to be the place where you could find Nautilus. And Amazon Prime picked it up for the UK and Ireland. I believe it's already played in Sweden, of all places.
Yes.
And in the US, it is supposed to be on AMC and AMC Plus. But this is essentially the origin story of Captain Nemo. Nemo is a deposed Indian prince who is also a genius inventor, and he actually has a hand in building the Nautilus, but in the change from the books, he was actually, I mean, maybe it's not a change from Jules Verne's book, but basically it was the East India Trading Company that were building the Nautilus, and Nemo is able to kind of, with a crew of folks, is able to steal it. In terms of a checklist of the things that Shannon McClung likes, this is check. How is the show going to be? I mean, the fact that Disney Plus did kind of kicked it to the curb. Who knows? I mean, I haven't read any of the reviews from Sweden. But in terms of visuals, I'm like, does this look like a streaming series? Yes. This does not look like a big budget movie. But looking at the actor who is playing Captain Nemo, Shazad Latif, who is from Star Trek Discovery, if I'm correct. He's got a great look. He has a great swashbuckling energy that I feel like the trailer did have. But I'll throw it over to you gentlemen first. Mikey, why don't you take it away? What did you think of our first look at Nautilus?
Well, the first thing I thought is I watched the trailer and I went, wow, if there was a trailer that had a checklist for everything that Shannon McClung likes, check. I was literally, it made me laugh. That I was like, all right, Jules Verne, check. Giant submersible, check. Swashbuckling, yep. This is all it needs is a bowler hat somewhere, and then and a blimp that flies, and then it would have been like a home run for Shannon.
Dirigible.
Yeah, a blimp. Here's the thing, and I don't know if I mean this as an insult or not. It looks like a TV show that I would have seen on syndication when I was like 15 years old. Like there's something about the way that it's shot. It has like CG visual effects that we wouldn't have had back then, but there's something about the way that's shot. It's like a little bit too crisp, a little bit too shot for TV. Like it just looked like it had all the things. I'm like, look, this is fun. And like seeing the origin story of Captain Nemo, like this all like, not to the level of Shannon, but even for me, I'm like, this is stuff that I would be into. Like this should, but given where the quality of streaming television has gotten to, there's something about the level of this. And I'm like, it just looked slightly below par. Like it looked like its effects and everything looked closer to the Flash on the CW than Superman and Lois on the CW.
Agreed. Yeah, I agree with you on that. I mean, and what's interesting about it is Disney Plus has a few of these series. Like there's one called Renegade Nell that was clearly made for the UK that did come over here. I'm like, Shani and I, we watched about half of it. It was like, oh, this is interesting. Just other stuff kind of took its place. Johnny, as a lover of all things the UK, the Anglophile that you are, what did you think of our first look at Nautilus?
Oh, you're right. I mean, I knew I wasn't going to talk you out of this trailer, so I just kind of accepted we were going to be talking about it. I did try by saying, wait, is this the UK one? But no, in the end, I knew you were going to talk about it. But yeah, I liked the energy of the trailer. Looks like fun. I hope it's good. But Michael, you're absolutely right. This feels like it just came on after Babylon 5 and Stargate. This is what that energy that it has for sure.
Which a part of me didn't mind. A part of me, like it was like a warm blanket. I was like, I watched a lot of those shows.
Yeah, and this may be what it is. And I agree. And as Shannon mentioned, the lead, Shazad Latif, I've liked him since Penny Dreadful when he played Dr. Jekyll. And so I like him as an actor. And he's been in episodes of Black Mirror. He's been in a number of things. He was in that Toast of London show, which I occasionally watch an episode of with Matt Barry from What We Do in the Shadows. So it's great. And then the series we see Richard E. Grant in the trailer. I looked at the cast list. Anna Torv is on for one of the episodes as a guest actress. So it's got some interesting people behind it and some good people in the cast. I'm not familiar with the main woman in the cast, but I'm down to give this thing a shot because swashbuckling is fun. So if it's a series rather that has that energy, then I'll excuse the more crisper look of it. If the story works, if the characters have nice chemistry, and if I enjoy the energy of the show, and coming out of the trailer, at least it makes me want to give it a shot, which is the point of any trailer. So yeah, I'm in on this.
Well, and it was also written and created by James Dormer, who Johnny wrote, was on the writing staff for The Musketeers, the BBC one that you and I both really like. But so right now, Nautilus does not have a U.S. release date. It just says 2024. But if for any of our listeners in the UK, it is supposed to be coming out, I believe, October 24th or 25th on Amazon Prime. So that brings us to our next trailer. This is another series. This is a remake of The Day of the Jackal. This one stars Eddie Redmayne and Lashana Lynch. That originally, The Day of the Jackal was a novel. It was made in a film, 1973. It was then loosely remade in 1997 with Bruce Willis and Richard Gere, and maybe the less we talk about that one, the better. But the interesting thing about this one is the Eddie Redmayne factor.
Yeah.
Like, being the lead of those Fantastic Beasts movies, I don't think it's not any fault of his, but also like Newt Scamander's just not that interesting a lead to me. But post his Oscar win, like he's had some pretty bizarre choices. But and seeing him in Hall H and Comic-Con, like he's beanpole. Like he's super tall, he's super skinny. Like he has put on some muscle for this. And watching him as this assassin, I was like, this is actually kind of interesting. But Johnny, I'll throw it over to you first.
Yeah.
What did you think of our first look at The Day of the Jackal?
Yeah, I mean, I stumbled upon this one a few days ago and sent it to you, Shannon, because I was like, this seems like something that might be up your alley. And I looked at, well, please, all the separate text messages you guys had, please.
Here we go. It's Disneyland all over again.
Yeah, someone go through the last 7 years of this show and write down every time Vogel said, Shannon and I were texting. But anyway, listen, the situation of this, I was on the fence because I didn't like the Killer remake they did with Natalie Emmanuel because I love that John Woo movie. And I got about 20-30 minutes into that one. I was like, it's not my jam. But every once in a while, Peacock does some interesting. I mean, the Continental wasn't bad. It wasn't great, but it was certainly watchable. This looks like a lot of fun. I mean, Lashana Lynch and Eddie Redmayne, and Eddie playing a character I've never seen Eddie quite play. So I like that element. It feels like Fassbender is the killer, has that element to it. But Lashana chasing him down, Lashana going after him. A lot of British actors I recognize from the trailer being a part of this thing. It gets me really excited. So I hope this is good. This looks good, and it's checking the boxes of a show like this. So I'm on board to at least give it a shot because of these two really good actors, aside from Jupiter Ascending, these two really good actors to kind of bring it home. So, and it's an unusual choice. Eddie Redmayne as an assassin is an unusual choice. So that makes me all the more interested. Yeah.
Mikey, how do you like your Eddie Redmayne? With a wand or with a sniper rifle?
Well, I don't like him ascending. Johnny's right about that. Although somebody did just try and argue with me about the merits of Jupiter Ascending and said that I needed to rewatch it.
Yeah, sure.
And I told them I would, but only under the influence of certain substances. Eddie Redmayne looks great. I actually think this looks great, but I'm way more excited about the Lashana Lynch factor.
Yeah.
Lashana Lynch is another one. Like, I think that she is an A++++ actress who has not landed her A++++ role yet.
Yeah.
Bond, she was good. Captain Marvel and the Marvels, like, she's solid, and just given the multiverse of it all, I think she's gonna have like hopefully a nicer chunk of the role in Doomsday and Secret Invasion, but even that is not like a mainline part of the Marvel universe. And she was even just fucking great in the Matilda remake on Netflix. Like, just brought me to tears. Sang a song that I do not like in the Matilda musical and made me love it. So like, she just is really like, she is multi-talented, and I just think brings so much to the roles that she plays. So I agree with everything you guys are saying about Eddie Redmayne, and I do think this is a different role for him, and I do want to see him play this role, but it really looks like this is a nice two-hander, because I think watching her go toe-to-toe with Redmayne is really interesting, and I've just constantly been a fan of her, and it just feels like kind of similar to what we were saying about the Cavill thing. It's like, she's making a lot of the right choices and landing a lot of some really nice roles in some really big featured movies, but hasn't quite graduated to that next level. And I think she deserves to. So hopefully this is a great vehicle to have her really show her stuff and have some people take notice and say, why aren't we using her for some bigger roles?
Well, The Day of the Jackal comes out November 7th on Peacock, and that brings us to our last trailer. And because it's spooky season, even though this movie doesn't come out during spooky season, it's spooky trailer. It's for Heretic. This one is starring Hugh Grant. This is from Scott Beck and Brian Woods, who are the writers of the original A Quiet Place. Yeah, what do you do if two nice young Mormon girls knock on your door and want to spread the word of the Book of Mormon? If you're Hugh Grant, you invite them inside and you get into a weird game of cat and mouse. This one, I kind of want to see it. I'm a little scared, but I kind of want to see it.
I thought this fell under the we're touching on the devil and getting into religious territory.
But it might just be this messed up guy.
Yeah,
that's the thing. Like that's the question mark right now. But Mikey, let's throw it over to you. What did you think of I believe this is our final trailer for Heretic?
Well, as someone who grew up in North Central Florida and North Florida, which actually had a quite large Mormon population and had Mormons showing up on my doorstep on the regular, I found this concept highly entertaining. I also think there's something really funny about just, everyone has read the stories about Hugh Grant in real life and how, although he does still have that level of British charm going for him, he's kind of a grumpy asshole.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's I think that's pretty much like even people who like Hugh Grant and enjoy working with him are like, he's kind of a grumpy asshole. So watching a movie where two Mormons show up on a grumpy asshole's door who may or may not worship the devil, I'm like, everything about this is, it looks creepy, it looks scary, but I'm kind of just more entertained by everything about this trailer. It looks fun. It does fall under that A24 category of, you're giving me something that it feels horror-ish and weird, but I can't quite tell what the tone is from the trailer. But I feel like A24 has sort of cornered the market on watching a trailer that makes you kind of scratch your head, but also makes you want to check it out. So this feels right in their wheelhouse. But yeah, I'm with you. I watched this trailer. I wasn't quite sure what it was. And I love the way they flip it around. I mean, there's just something about, I'm trying to think of the right way to say this, but there's something about people coming to sort of preach the gospel to you. And I think everyone who has had that happen, no matter what your belief is versus their belief, there's always that desire to be like, you think that's true? Let me ask you some questions. Let me poke on that a little bit. And nobody does, because you don't want to get into that with a stranger on your doorstep. But watching a movie where somebody's like, yeah, let's examine this a little bit. Y'all heard of Satan? Like, it just, I'm in.
Johnny,
Hugh Grant in a horror movie. Did you have that on your 2024 bingo card?
I know I did not, and I love this for Hugh Grant. This is, I mean, we're in a bit of a Hugh-assance, I think. Like the last couple of years, he's been in some interesting films and TV shows and has delivered some fantastic performances. I bet a lot of people in our audience have never seen A Very English Scandal, but the first season, he is fantastic in that series as a real life homosexual politician who was hiding it in the 1960s and 50s, and how he navigated that into the situation that he got into. And I love that. And then there are other things I've seen him recently in that I've just kind of enjoyed his energy. And it's great because he's no longer the ingenue. And so we're getting, like, even in The Gentleman, you're getting a Hugh Grant that's like, oh, I don't have to fucking be the lead anymore. So kiss my ass. I don't have to be the pretty boy. I can just do whatever the hell I want to do and bring my kind of inner character actor out. And I think this is some of the best acting we've seen Hugh Grant do in the last few years than ever before. And I love that. So something like this, there are certain moments in the trailer where you're just like, holy shit, like, this is really cool what he's doing. And it may just clearly be that person. You know how everyone shuts the door on the Mormons and the Jehovah's Witnesses? What if it was the one person who actually wanted to have this conversation and take it to the nth degree, right? That's basically what's that?
He's just been waiting.
Yeah, just been waiting to have this conversation. And clearly he has, because he set up 2 damn rooms to do some crazy shit to these poor girls. And Sophie Thatcher, and I love Sophie Thatcher. There's Beckon Woods also wrote The Boogeyman, which came out last year. I like that. That was a good little horror film. And they didn't direct it, but they wrote it. Mm-hmm. They did 65, which I don't think anybody watched. So they could use a hit. This is 93% off 45 critics reviews right now on Rotten Tomatoes. So that gets me excited to see it. And this trailer looks really challenging. Yeah. And just, someone who grew up in the religious household as well, as Shannon did and Michael to a degree, I'm looking forward to see the challenges. Well, yeah, fair. I was trying to give you some credit. The challenges, because I like this. I like when religion is connected to horror. It's a nice challenge. So I'm very much and there were some nice moments in this trailer that made me even more excited. to see this.
The Vogel house was what we call Jewish light. L-I-T-E, just Jewish light. Is Jewish light.
Just some Splenda. Just some Splenda sprinkled in.
Just a little touch. Little touch of the Hebrew.
It's Jewish with a hyphen in the middle. It's Jewish.
Jewish. To your point,
we call that a George Santos house. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Even though we all grew up through Hugh Grant's career, it's like it is kind of shocking. I went back recently, and I just one day I put on Notting Hill because I hadn't watched it in a while. And I like Notting Hill, but I hadn't watched it in a while. And to your point, going back and watching romantic lead Hugh Grant being charming and foppish and his hair just flopping around as he goes, "Oh, I'm so confused because I'm a handsome, dorky British guy," is so different from the guy that we have now.
Yeah.
And not just in the like Harrison Ford has aged, but he's still Harrison Ford. Like Hugh Grant really did go through this transformation of like, I'm a charming British guy to being like, fuck you. Get off my British lawn.
Yeah.
Except in Heretic. Come on in.
It's worse.
Well, Heretic comes out November 15th.
Yeah, look, I just want to underscore this, right? Dungeons and Dragons. He was fantastic in Dungeons and Dragons, fantastic in Wonka. As I mentioned, The Gentleman. I loved him in Florence Foster Jenkins back in 2016. So he's had some really interesting things going on for him. And I didn't watch The Regime. I would love to have seen him in that as well. So it's nice to see him doing this kind of thing and putting down all that stuff down.
Johnny, you need to watch Operation Fortune.
Oh,
What is that? Is that a movie? It's Guy Ritchie. It's Guy Ritchie, Jason Statham, Aubrey Plaza. It is a Picasso of stuff that shouldn't go together, but it's a pretty entertaining movie.
Yeah, I need to watch. You should watch that show that your best friend recommended to you. It sounds very good. You guys should maybe watch it together.
What? Oh Lord! Oh my God! I'm a Guy Ritchie completist, so I need to watch that. And someday I'll watch Revolver, though I doubt I'll ever do that. All right, let's take a break. And on the other side, we're going to get into some. Did you enjoy the show so far? Because we're about to jump into some toxic fandom conversation. We'll be right back right after this.
Boom, 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 boom.
That's good. That's good. Oh boy. All right. So let's get into this thing. I made some notes, I think. Did I make some notes? I feel like I made some notes. Oh, maybe not. All right. Let's jump into this thing. So Variety wrote an article talking about toxic fandom and exploring what studios are doing to address toxic fandom and combat it to a degree. And within the article, they kind of went through the most recent history of some of the toxic fandom, like Rings of Power, like The Acolyte, other things of that nature, and talked about how sometimes the toxicity is ahead of the thing even coming out, and sometimes it's during its run, the anger and the frustration of it all. There were marketing executives, TV executives, and someone from Star Trek who commented on it, who's one of the people involved with the brand at Star Trek, and so there were quite a few. But the article also went to great pains to say, like, there are a number of studio executives and studios who did not want to comment on this article because of fear of backlash or being found out for commenting on this. And within the article, it also talked about how, along with their regular focus groups, they want to add a second focus group or other focus groups that are super fan built in order to address any possible toxic fandom missteps that they would have with marketing materials and possibly more. So a lot in here, and certainly this week we had some examples of reactions to certain things. We'll bring them up as we go along. But Michael, I'll go to you first. Your thoughts on this article, your thoughts on what it says, and this idea of super fan groups that comment or give advice on marketing materials going forward, and possibly overall storylines in these things.
I love fans. I love fandom. I feel like we are all part of several fandoms. I don't think that fans should be weighing in on studio notes. I mean, I think that it even went so far as to say if a movie was early enough in its development, the fans' feedback could affect the story. I don't think it should. I don't think that's a good idea. I think that, and again, I posted a thing earlier this week. It was a play on the Tommy Lee Jones quote from Men in Black. It was like, a fan is great, fandoms are a mess. Like, fandoms are not a good bunch. And so I think you get a bunch of geeks in a room and say, hey, we're thinking of doing this with DC or this with Marvel. What do you think? The response that you're going to get back, whatever the amalgam of all of these different opinions is going to be, is not going to be something that pushes the stories about these characters that we love in interesting and new directions. It just never is. Like, that's why you need someone to come in with a vision to kind of push things in a certain way. So that made me worried. But also the thing, we're just in a weird place. And I think you can't, without diving, I know it's like we're like a month away from the election, and not that I want to dive into a bunch of political talk, but the thing is, where fandoms have gotten to, particularly the toxic side of fandoms, you can't actually untangle it from the political discourse in our country right now, because a lot of the things that a lot of the more toxic sides of the fandoms do on social media, they're picking up tactics that were pulled right from far right leaning personalities like Milo Yiannopoulos, as a way to sort of build this outrage. Like, there is a fake outrage that certain people at a high level do on social media, whether it be on Twitter, whether it be on YouTube. There is a fake level of outrage that then feeds into the people who have real outrage about this thing, that then carry it into this huge mass of people, at least on social media, that makes it seem like fandoms are falling apart and tearing each other apart. I actually don't think that's what's really happening in real life. I think we all get wrapped up in these bubbles of social media, but those bubbles of social media are really loud, and they do sort of affect things in certain ways. Like, there is definitely the people who live outside of fandoms that sort of hear through Facebook and YouTube and social media and Twitter and everything else, the Star Wars fans are mad about this, the Marvel fans are up in arms about this. And there is a very small group of really ridiculously toxic people that are kind of giving a bad name to fans across the board, I think. That's my take on it.
Yeah, what's your thoughts on this, Shannon? I mean, it's clearly a minefield to walk into when we're talking about toxic fandoms, because honestly, honest criticism is always essential in a situation. But when you start to make money off your criticism, and to the degree that you are fabricating things to be upset about, it becomes questionable what your intentions are. And I'm not saying everybody does, but certainly you can pinpoint some members of the shall we say anti-whatever coalition who do this. What are your thoughts on the article and what it highlighted, and toxic fandoms overall right now, and the power they have? They seem to have, according to this article.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that seems like a really slippery slope to get the input from fans into something, because I mean, a lot has changed in the last 15 years or 16 years, but when Heath Ledger was first announced as the Joker,
right,
a lot of fans had an issue with that. Like, what? The guy from Brokeback Mountain? Like, are you kidding? And because the internet was not as powerful and the social media was not as powerful as it is today, it seemed like they were able to make that movie no problem. And what came out was one of the most incredible performances put to film. If you try to do that today, like, hey, we're thinking of casting so-and-so, if you get the wrong people in there, you could strangle that baby in the crib. And there are certain performances that will never see the light of day because some very vocal folks who don't necessarily, I'm not saying just because you're a fan, you don't understand how stories work. But like, obviously the three of us are fans. But being a fan doesn't make you a storyteller at the same time. It doesn't make you an actor. It doesn't make you a director. You can have thoughts and feelings on how this sort of played out, but that doesn't mean you're equipped to then go and do your own thing. And I think that's sort of the difference, is you can have your feeling about this, but to climb into that director's head, into that writer's head, and be like, this is why we're thinking this will work. And in the case of Heath Ledger, Christopher Nolan was freaking right. Now, has situations happened where that didn't work out? Yeah, of course, because no one is ever going to bat 1,000. But it's kind of a weird thing. Like, with the more sort of toxic aspects, I could see a positive. They're like, look, sometimes people just want to be heard,
Yeah.
And if we give these people the opportunity to kind of have their say and be like, man, thank you so much for your input, we're going to take that and run. But again, it just seems like a really slippery slope to give the keys to the kingdom to some folks like that. Because at the end of the day, more than likely, those folks know where their bread is buttered, and they're still going to have a negative reaction because that's what some of their finances are tied to.
But
Yeah. Oh,
I agree. I literally just said this, you know, like I think we're all in agreement on that, but just playing devil's advocate a little bit, go straight to the other side and look at what just happened with Joker 2, where Todd Phillips very publicly didn't want to hear from DC.
Yes.
Didn't want any input from DC. James Gunn sent a few thoughts. Todd Phillips didn't want them. Like, there was literally there was no input at all from anyone on the let's make sure that we're doing this right by this character, right by that. Sometimes the studio or the executives could come and say, we really want to do this. We really want to make sure we stick to this with this character. And the director can say, I don't want to do that. And here's why. What Nolan did with the Joker and Heath Ledger is a perfect example. But Todd Phillips kind of doing his own thing and saying, seemingly saying, I wasn't there in the room, but seemingly the vibe is, I just want to do my own thing. I don't care about working with the company that it is the guardian of this character in this franchise. And that also didn't work out right. So as much as it's like, I don't think bringing in a group of fans and being like, is this okay? Because I think you end up with Rise of Skywalker when you do that. On the other hand, you having somebody come along and go, I don't want any input on what matters to the fans, doesn't work either.
Yeah. And that's the thing. My concern comes from the place of, if you create a focus group that includes some of the most toxic elements of your fandom, you're in essence indirectly rubber stamping their approach to your content. And how can you trust them? As Shannon, I think you were alluding to, let me take it further. How can you trust them to not be, how can you trust some of them to not be bad faith actors who will say in the room, oh yeah, you should totally, a transgender clone trooper? Absolutely. That sounds great. The way you're presenting it, totally. Run to their YouTube channel and say, I told them in the room, I did not want this. I thought this was a dumb idea. Well, who wants a transgender clone trooper? That's nonsense. So yes, and you can say, oh, well, they can sign NDA. Some of these motherfuckers make enough money that they don't give a shit about an NDA situation. And so I think it becomes dangerous to give them more access to have that possibility to screw your brand over. That's what I worry about. And to be fair, let me finish, Michael. To be fair, on the other side, there are people who just like, what, you could shake anything you want out of your butt and they think it's gold. And that's a problem too. So what you've got to do is find the people in the middle who are authentically in the middle, who will tell you if it's good or bad in their honest opinion, because they're not financially tied to their opinion in any way. And they will hone it and they will let you know one. Now, does that mean it's going to work every time? Probably not. Nothing is ever perfect. But I think you have to find that. But do I trust studios to vet the right people to be part of these focus groups? I don't know. So it's an interesting conundrum. And as Michael, you said earlier, and please take it away after I'm done here. Like you said earlier about this, we're in a whole nother place now than we've ever been before. Because if you look at Catwoman, don't tell me that these same toxic fandoms wouldn't have lost their minds when you announced that Halle Berry is going to be Catwoman right after Michelle Pfeiffer was Catwoman 3 years earlier, you know?
And that's the thing. I mean,
woman,
to your point, to what you were saying, I mean, yeah, like there's the danger that somebody's going to say, yes, put a transgendered clone trooper in, I don't care, and then go like slam it on social media. But I think for most marginalized people, the bigger fear is you're going to get a group in there and they're going to say exactly what we think they're going to say, which is don't put transgender people in there. I don't want this to be political. Why do you have all these gay characters? Why are they queer? Why is this woman the lead? Why is this person of color the lead? Why did you change this race? Like that they're just going to do the homogenized thing. Because look, Last Jedi was sort of ground zero for when fandoms blew up. Like before, there was stuff that happened before that. There was the hate campaign. There was the hate campaign on the all-female-led Ghostbusters, particularly attacking Leslie Jones. But like Last Jedi is really where this blew up, and the way that it blew up. Look, I love Last Jedi, make no bones about it, but Last Jedi is not a perfect movie. But the problem is, this is where criticism of a movie started getting pushed to the side in favor of criticism of the politics of a movie.
Yes.
So the criticisms of Last Jedi, there's legitimate criticisms in there. Like, was Luke would a Luke Skywalker, who believed that his dad, who was Space Hitler, still had good in him, be so readily willing to pull a lightsaber on his nephew? That is a perfectly valid criticism where you say, okay, Rian Johnson maybe overshot that a little bit. Like, I think that deserved something, but that almost gets buried in the Rey is a Mary Sue. I hate Rose Tico. Why is this Asian girl in this movie? Finn is black. Like, Kylo Ren is the only white male in this thing who's elite. Like, just there's this avalanche of everything is DEI, everything is Mary Sue, everything is oh, look, another all-woman superhero-led film. Let's post on Twitter the last 4 that bombed and blah, blah. Like, there's just this thing that becomes, it's not even about the thing. And so, to your point, what fans are you talking to? And you are also right that there seems, just like with our politics, it seems like you can't have a middle of the ground opinion. You either think that the Marvels is the worst piece of garbage that Marvel made, or the Marvels is a maligned movie that is actually amazing, but you can't just say the Marvels is fine.
Yeah.
The characters were great. They were really fun. The story was a little middling and didn't really land. It didn't really do what they wanted to do. It had some nice moments, but it didn't really get there at the end. Like, it seems like nobody allows you to say that. Everything is one or the other. Right now, it's happening with Joker 2. Joker 2 is either just a horrible movie, or the three of us are morons and we didn't get the nuance of it, and it's actually brilliant.
Yeah.
And so it's like, we live in this world where I understand the studio dilemma. You know, you come out with a movie, it's like, it's the same thing we've been saying, which, whether you are a director, a writer, an actor, like, why sign on to the hate campaign that you are almost guaranteed to get by making a Star Wars movie, a DC movie, a Marvel movie? Like, it just seems like it's just a near impossible thing. And if you try to diversify your universe even a little bit, I mean, forget even trying to do a story where a gay Jedi is your lead. Like, putting a, like that, the studios are so afraid of that right now that Bob Iger has come out and publicly said to the universe that Disney doesn't do messaging anymore, which is a ridiculously stupid statement to make. But so studios are trying to back off of it so much. And unfortunately, backing off of that means backing off of trying to do any representation for any part of your community that those loud voices are going to dislike.
Yeah, and the nonsense inherent in that is that, well, the original trilogy, everybody was cast because they were the best actor for the role. Not that, you know, everybody was white leading big franchises, so we went with white characters and white actors. Like, that was also, in essence, hired because of the tastes of the time. Now the tastes are different, so they want to expand and explore possibilities. But of course, that's seen as casting correctly, and this is seen as casting with an agenda. Let me tell you something. They cast all the white leads with an agenda to make a good movie, to make a successful movie. They cast a hot Carrie Fisher to make a successful movie, a good-looking roguish Harrison Ford to make a successful movie. This is the whole point of it all, and so it becomes really muddy that you have to accept one thing in order to look at that. So all that kind of stuff gets kind of sucked up into it, and you're right. And some people, like, let me put this up because it's starting already, right? We are one day closer to Skeleton Crew. Oh, and another black girl as the lead. You guys suck so bad. So it's starting already with Skeleton Crew, and it's becoming so frustrating in that way. Wait, am I off?
Yeah, and that's a kid.
Yeah. Sorry, guys. My computer is freezing. Go ahead. Go. Keep going. Oh, shit.
I just like sitting here in the side.
Go talk.
But you're absolutely right. It's already, like, look, Skeleton Crew. I'm excited about it. I'm excited for Skeleton Crew. It might be great. It might be really bad. Acolyte, again, I'm personally, as a Star Wars fan, I have a soft spot for it. It's not good. And that was another one where You know, like, I don't think it was bad because of representation. I don't think it was bad because there was a bunch of people of color and there was, you know, a kind of a queer underlying queerness to it. Like, that's all fine. It just wasn't good. But Skeleton Crew hasn't even gotten here yet. We haven't even seen what they're going to do. And there's a certain subset of the fandom that is already writing it off because they think that Kathleen Kennedy is the devil. They're already writing it off because, like, the kids are not all white. Like, there's already this level of what can I go after without even seeing if it's good Star Wars or bad Star Wars. And what ends up happening again is whenever Star Wars tries to do something different, and the Acolyte, all of its execution aside, here is a new era of the Star Wars universe that we've not done yet. Here is nothing to do with the Skywalkers. This is outside of Palpatine. We're not dealing with stormtroopers. We're going to give you something new. And the response that Disney gets back and the response that Lucasfilm gets back is, we don't want it. Fans don't want it. And now with Skeleton Crew, again, we have another at-bat that is, this is Goonies, John Hughes, 80s vibe in the Star Wars universe. It is taking place sort of in the Mandalorian era. It's its own thing. We're doing this stuff. And if this gets rejected by the fans for a bunch of silly reasons, the lesson is, all right, let's just give them more Skywalker stuff. Let's recast Han, Luke, and Leia and reboot A New Hope. That seems to be what they want. And I don't think that's what fans want.
That is the danger, is progress is made by taking risks. And when you stop taking risks, what you get is a watered down version of what you already got before.
Right.
And there might be an element at the beginning of, oh boy, this feels familiar. I like this. Then you get it again. Then you get it again. Then you get it again. And then everything suddenly starts to look the same. And that is not how good art is made. Good art is made by taking risks.
And you're never going to satisfy the toxic side of things, especially the ones that are invested in finding something so they can keep making money off of it with their YouTube channels or Patreons or whatever they've got set up, or merchandise or selling calendars, whatever it is this month. They're invested in. So even if you went that route, if you went lily white and you went back to the beginning, then they'll go like, it's the same thing. There's no innovation. There's no ingenuity. There's no uniqueness. Who are the people writing this stuff? They need to get these other people. So there's no satisfying it, because they can't be satisfied. If they're satisfied, they won't make money. And I think that for certain sections, not all, I think there's, as Mike was saying, there's legitimate criticism about story, about casting, about directors, writers, whatever you want to say, direction. There is legitimate criticism out there to be had. It's just getting lost in all this quagmire of toxicity with people who have agendas. You know?
Well, and you know, John, you're always fond of reminding people that I've been in those boardrooms in the past. But I mean, the thing is, a lot of those people not that much smarter than any of us. And they're in these boardrooms and they're being forced to make some real big decisions. Some of them are very smart. Don't get me wrong. There's some very smart executives, but a lot of them are not smart. And so what happens is, when you are looking at Twitter or you're looking at YouTube, and you're seeing all the reasons, you're gonna miss it. And Hollywood is so good at missing the point. It's like one of the things that I'm more upset about anything with Joker 2 right now is the lesson that currently seems to be taken away by Hollywood is, Todd Phillips tried to do something too different. Fans really don't like a musical. They didn't want a musical. That's not what it was. And that's not what it is all. Like, I will get, the one thing I will give Todd Phillips credit for with Joker 2 is he swung for the fences and did something really different. And God, I want more of that. But on the other hand, Star Wars is a mess right now. Yeah. I don't think any of us have any confidence that anyone at Lucasfilm has any kind of giant vision. And I'm including Filoni and Favreau in this. I don't think anyone has a big idea of like, this is what the next 10 years of Star Wars is going to be. And part of the reason is they're so goddamn nervous that anytime they take any step, we're all going to lose our shit. But then the other problem that John and Shannon are completely correct about is when something does bomb, when Acolyte bombs, because everyone is yelling about the color of the Jedi or the queerness or the this, nobody at Disney and Lucasfilm can sit in a room and go, wow, guys, I think the writing wasn't great and the directing was uneven, and it really seemed like the execution on this wasn't good. It didn't look as good as it should have looked. How come Agatha All Along is doing so well right now, but they had half the budget, more than half the budget of us? Like, what's the disconnect here? But instead what happens is we get a daily Variety article that says maybe they should bring fans in and get advice from them because they don't know what they're doing. And like, they can't hear because of the loudness of the stupidity of half of the comments. And like, I'm all about good criticism. I love arguing. I love arguing with these two. I love it when we disagree on a movie or a TV show.
True.
It's because I'm really good at arguing and I usually win. But that's beside the point.
I don't call it at all.
But I welcome a discourse with geeks about stuff that actually matters to the story. What I don't welcome is all this other garbage that is getting just in the way, where the review bombing and just the hate. It doesn't serve anybody, and it's going to give us an entire decade of Rise of Skywalkers.
Yeah. Yeah. There's an entitlement underneath all of it. That's what frustrates me. And I don't think we're changing, because every new generation is more entitled than the one before it. And so you have the feeling of like, it should be given to me the way I want it. You should be doing it the way why can I see it? You can't see it. Clearly I must be smarter than you. And that's not the case most of the time. And so it becomes that kind of thing. And I think that's at the base of toxic fandom, is this sense of entitlement and the feeling that they're not being heard. And so they're going to use their tactics, which is review bombing, creating YouTube channels, consistently going after these things in order to find some measure of power. And if you give them access or keys to the kingdom, as Shannon mentioned, then you're essentially validating that approach. And I think that's where really at the end of the day it becomes dangerous.
I mean, I know we're wrapping up, but like when you all were talking about Joker, like I actually went to the YouTube clip of our review. And just looking at the comments, like there was one really kind of lovely one where the commenter said the problem with people not liking, not the problem with people not liking the movie, but the problem with people expressing their opinions is valid ones. He's like, and he very generously referenced us. He's like, your valid criticisms get lost in all the bullshit that gets thrown out. And literally the next comment up was someone being like, you three are idiots.
Yeah, of course.
and not talking about, I love Joker, you three are idiots. You three are idiots. And that's basically that's the entirety of the thought. And it's going like, you can call us idiots. You know, that's fine. But why'd you like the movie?
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, if that was your jam, fantastic. When we were doing our live show, like there was a commenter who was in there, you know, fighting everybody else, and Vogel called him out, which is not called him out in a negative way, but like, hey man, I love that you love this movie. Good for you, you know, sticking up for the things you love. But even with the way that they were supporting their love of Joker, they did it respectfully. Yeah. I mean, it wasn't you three are wrong, you three are pieces of shit. It was, I don't agree with you. Here's why I liked it. And it's like, great, that's the way to do it.
Yeah, counterpoint, point, counterpoint. That's how it used to be. And now it gets lost in the quagmire. But I also think the other side is getting a little crazy. I mean, people, Michael, you're bringing this up. Explain to me, people are coming after Wiccan because the actor is not Jewish? Is this a legitimate thing? Explain to me what's happening.
People got a lot of feelings about Billy Kaplan, but yes, there is there was a whole, when the trailer came out, there was he's too stereotypically gay. Why are they leaning into these stereotypes? Why are they making him so gay? And then Joe Locke had to respond to that. And now that he has been, spoiler alert, confirmed as Wiccan, sorry, just got thinking about Wicked.
Got Alpha on the brain.
You got $1 billion brain right
I start talking about gay and I just go straight to Wicked coming out. But now that he's been confirmed as Wiccan, there is a whole thing. And the same thing happened with Oscar Isaac in Moon Knight, where he's not Jewish. And so you start to get into this thing where, look, I'm all about like casting appropriately to a degree. But I do think we're starting to get into this area where unless somebody checks every single box, I mean, by any stretch, I think, you know, people who are fans of Agatha All Along, like, are real, and we say this every week, but like the chemistry between Catherine Hahn and Joe Locke, the chemistry between Catherine Hahn and Aubrey Plaza is really, really strong. Now, I think that if and this is like, look, I'm not going to give you the solid answer to this because there isn't one. There's a lot of opinions on this, but when someone is a character of color, you are a black character, you're a Latinx character, you are an indigenous character, like there are certain things that you're like, you really should cast that appropriately. But when you start to go down the box, I mean, even Joe Locke has been very public about saying, and he's played 2 gay characters now. He's like a huge, you know, obviously Heartstopper and now Wiccan are 2 huge roles for him. And he's been really clear on the fact that as a gay actor, he wants to play straight roles.
Yeah.
He doesn't only want to play gay roles. And so he doesn't think it's fair to say that only gay people can play gay roles. And so, and there's an entire argument. I have lots of friends who disagree with that statement, but I'm just saying that this is there's so much that is potentially a giant issue, a quagmire that studios can step into, and fans are so ready to jump on everything and get upset about it that, like I was saying, you're reaching a point where it's like, why are we? And if the, you know, like the return on investment doesn't seem as great. It's like, this is so much work and the movies aren't doing as well. We seem to be losing our audience. It's like, look, if we as geeks want to continue to live in this era of geek paradise of, like, you know, comic book movies, Star Wars movies, Star Trek movies, Lord of the Rings on, you know, like there's so many things that are happening right now. And if we tear every single one of them down for every conceivable reason, at a certain point, the studio's like, all right, fuck it, let's go do something else.
I think nothing's going to burst the bubble more that we're experiencing now, the geek bubble, more than toxic fandom on both sides of the equation right now. Because I mean, even this week, people are coming after John Stewart or Aaron Pierre, saying that he isn't dark enough. They called it colorism, that that Hollywood is afraid to have a very dark actor play John Stewart because he's a dark character or darker black character in the comics. And I'm like, you know, we're just trying to get through the door. People came after In the Heights for that too. And as a Latino, I was supremely frustrated by this. Let's just get through the door. Let's camp out for a little bit, and then we're going to get to those levels. But it seems like both sides want to destroy it, or the other side wants to go and run with it to the nth degree. And it's like, let's just all calm down and sit in the middle for a little bit and move progressively to where we're going and be patient with it. So it gets frustrating after a while because you feel like there's nobody else in the middle sometimes. And you're like, come on, you know? So,
well, but I mean, I think, look, this is the issue with social media in general. It's
100%.
I think in real life, and I think this is true of politics, and I think it's true of fandoms. I think most people sit in the middle. They're just not the ones screaming on social media.
They don't have the time, right? Exactly. They want to stay.
They got other shit to do.
That's a good point. All right, Shannon, you're usually the middle on this one. Any final words as we wrap up, gentlemen, this particular topic?
No, I mean, I think we're all very much on the same side with this. It's we're not going to get that social media genie back in the bottle. So I understand why the studios would want to do it, but at the same time, it's like that seems like a risky endeavor.
Yeah, fair point. All right, well, there you go. That's our episode. A bit of a longer episode than we anticipated, but hey, we have a lot of fun talking about these topics, so we appreciate you all listening or watching us. Shannon, what do we have to tell them?
Yeah, if you'd like to follow us on social media, on Twitter, it's at @geek_buddies, on Instagram at @the_geek_buddies. If you'd like to follow me on social media, on Twitter, it's at Shannon_McClung, on Instagram at Shannon the Geek Buddy. If you'd like to follow Mr. Vogel, it is at MKToon. If you'd like to follow Mr. Roca, it is at The Roca Says.
Mikey.
All right, here's what we want you to do. We want you to be passionate about the stuff you love. We want you to be passionate about the stuff you hate, but we want you to be cool. Just be cool. And you know what would be cool? Smashing that like button below, subscribing to Johnny's Outlaw Nation page. Check out all the amazing content he's got there. Leave your cool comments below, or just call us fucking idiots. But leave the comments below. Let us know what you thought about everything in this week's episode. If you're listening to us on a podcast, leave us some stars and comments so we'll go up in the rankings. And as always, the best thing you can do is retweet this video, post it on your social, send it to your friends, and tell them to hang out with your buddies, the Geek Buddies.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen. All right, we will be coming up with a Penguin review, and Michael will be back for next week's Agatha All Along review.
Gotta be.
Well. You gotta be. But we will talk about all that stuff coming up soon. But if you're catching up on this week's Agatha and Penguin, those are out there for you all to watch from us as well. And we'll talk to you next time with another brand new episode of the
Geek
Buddies.